Good morning, folks. I really appreciate for joining us today, and today I really want to talk about something that we hold very personally, personalization. SeaChange, a lot of people here, as I talk to people at the show, they don't really know SeaChange. We're like the best kept secret of people that are in the video space. SeaChange has been around for 25 years. We celebrated our 25th anniversary in July this year. And we were a pioneer in a lot of the technologies that all of the video systems are built on today. We started out by being the first server-side ad insertion company in the world. That was an Emmy-winning technology that we produced in 1993-94. That was followed on by us creating a video-on-demand capability that was deployed in over 200 operators around the globe. So we serve the pay TV industry. And we've seen the industry going through really significant change this year. And one of the things that we are really, really confident of is that if you want to provide a personalized service for your customers and actually get the maximum money from your video, you have to really look at a lot of information associated with that user, with your content, with your ad inventory, and with the different productization options that you have in order to create that personalized experience. So what I think is happening is that personalization is really a big data problem. When it comes down to the issue is that there's so much information that's generated from modern video platforms at this point that can be used to personalize services. It's like a torrent of data, and it's just data at that point. You have to find ways to take that data and turn it into actionable information that you can use to make sure that the user engagement, the user experience, is something that keeps people coming back to your services. One of the things that we've seen as a trend in the industry is that the pay TV providers are going from being an aggregator of channels to really being an aggregator of streaming services. So when it comes down to multiplying the amount of data that you're dealing with, you're not only dealing with content that you're originating, but you're now dealing with federated content coming from all the other streaming services as well. So you've got these multiple data sets and sources on the content side. You clearly have information that's coming from your systems about how is the user interacting with your service. You've got information coming from the actual supply side on the ad side. And you've got information that's coming from how people are actually discovering your content. And all that information it's got to be captured. And this is really fine-grained information. When it comes down to it, you think about the user interaction information that you get from your clients. And you'll know how long, what the journey's like for your customers to go find that piece of content that they're really looking for. And that information is key click by key click, and it comes rushing into your system every day. The other thing is that all of these data sources are expanding at this exponential rate. So the information continues to go up. The amount of content that you have to treat is going up substantially. So you may have libraries with 200,000-300,000 titles that you have to be able to manage. And those titles are actually being converted to multiple formats in order to get them to the multiplicity of devices you want to reach. And a lot of this is all real-time based. So how the heck can you create a personalized experience when you've got this torrents of data that you have to look at and make decisions about in order to make sure that customer is getting what they want, when they want it, and where they want it at any time? So we really are talking about the path to personalization, and we really think there are some stepping stones to get there. And that path is really paved with data. And what we'd like to talk about is how you can use some of the tools that are available. And I've seen some great talks about the use of artificial intelligence to improve the user experience and to really help manage your business to drive monetization. And that's going to be a tool. It's going to be something that we can use, but it's not enough. So let's talk about the content. So I think there are 4 main topics that I'd like to cover, and one is about the content and how you can actually use artificial intelligence to take the information about your content and make it so it's more discoverable, so you can do better recommendations by going in with the metadata that you get from your metadata feeds and actually go and enrich that to make the user experience better. So the content challenge is one of those things that I talk about scale. So you're getting multiple assets per title. So you're ingesting a single title. And what you have to do is you're constantly creating all these variants of that, and suddenly you have a pile of stuff, just a huge pile of stuff. You take a single title and you're now converting that into all these different codec formats for all these different devices, applying different DRM techniques for all the different devices, and suddenly a single title is now 50 assets that you have to manage through the life cycle. Obviously, the amount of premium content that's being generated today is on the rise, as companies like Netflix and Amazon and others are doing incredible creative work to create binge-worthy new series and that kind of thing. And there's version varieties that go on as you look at both broadcast content and the content coming from the major studios, that you might have a version that's the director's cut, and you have all these variances of these single pieces of content. The metadata that comes along with the content is also growing. So basic metadata is continuing to expand so that the movie information is getting more rich, but you really want to have even more of that. And then finally, I talked about this idea of federating content, where you as a service provider would like to be able to stay and keep your brand up front and understand what people are doing, interacting with other streaming services and becoming a streaming portal. So you're going to see that the same piece of content may be coming from multiple sources. So you have to look at, how do you normalize that information so that when somebody's trying to discover a particular title that's coming from Netflix and it's maybe in your own library and that kind of thing, you've got to be able to make sure that that piece of content, that title, can be discovered properly and different ways to watch that. The end result is you have basically what you had at the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. You've got this giant warehouse full of all these content variants, and you got to figure out a way to be able to get the user to the content they want. So the streaming service providers need to find a way to match the user's intent, the user's condition, with this giant warehouse of options that are there in order to achieve personalization. So one dimension of that is basically enriching your metadata. So people search for things in different ways. They'll use different terms. It's all based on how they think. So if your metadata is not enriched and that person does a search, either a voice search or enters a search term, and that information is not part of the metadata, that consumer is not going to find what they want. So the only way to do that is just to continue to add metadata to the information that improves search results. The information that comes in from the variety of sources of content is often not the same. It's not aligned. So simple things like the rating might be actually formatted differently when you get it sourced from one source versus another. So when you get into the content management challenge, you've got to make sure that you're properly rooting out content that's inappropriate for youngsters. And if they have not marked the content in the same way, then you have a problem. So you have to normalize this metadata as well. But the most important thing is the ability to enrich. So add metadata to the information so that you have a better chance of doing better recommendations for those end users, and also making the search process easier for the end customer. And I'd like to show you an example of something we're doing with our content management system that allows us to add that enriched metadata by actually analyzing, using AI tools. We're analyzing the actual video source and extracting that metadata directly from that analysis. So this is a view of our content management system, and we're going to show a title called Tears of Steel, whereby you can see some of the metadata that's part of it. And then down at the bottom, there's some enrichment information that we've actually articulated that we want the AI engine to go find. Working with a company called Dive TV, which is a European AI company, they're actually going through and analyzing the video and identifying different, very, very specific locations as an example. They actually can go in and look for fashions and even brands of fashions. They can go in and look for brands of automobiles. They can go in and basically add all of this information frame by frame into the system. We can then import that information into our content management system so it can be used for both recommendations and for discovery. And there are a lot of other use cases of this technology that we're finding that people are willing to pay significant amounts for. So this is an added feature to our content management system, and we're looking at other use cases that we can have. So here it's just demonstrating that we've gone into our content management system, so this is now part of that big warehouse of information that we have. And we see that we've marked the Amsterdam Central Station. And who knows, somebody may have, they went on their honeymoon to Amsterdam and they had some great dinner near the Central Station, and they might be on their anniversary and they want to go look for that. And it turns out that there's a movie called Tears of Steel that they can go watch. It may not be appropriate for a romantic interlude, but so this is just an example. And there are other things, and this is just a zoom in on that information. And there are other things that this AI engine gives us the capability. For instance, establishing the mood of a particular part of the video. So, as an example, there's a really exciting car chase that includes Audis. There's also a set of scene changes that is marked here, so that after you've put the content in and you have the rights to be able to do ad insertion, think about the use case where you may have information about an end user that they happen to be an Audi lover, and you just had this exciting Audi car chase in the Transporter movie, of course, and the end result is you take the scene break right after that car chase and present an Audi commercial to them from the ad system. So that's a stepping stone. Basically going in, using artificial intelligence to enrich metadata to help you do a better job of personalizing the user experience. The next kind of area that I'd like to talk about, another dimension of how to apply user or metadata enrichment, is to the user metadata. So this is information about the user that you can imply by looking at the information coming from the client that tells you, exactly what are the behaviors of that user when they're interacting with your service. You can also use, what is their, viewing habits? When do they view? What are they viewing? So all of that information is a rich set of information that can be used to really identify what is the customer's preference. And of course, there are explicit ways that the user can communicate with you about their interests and the things that they're interested in. There's also social media information that can be brought into this building a view of that customer's profile. So this viewer metadata can also be acted on with artificial intelligence so that you can go in and say, okay, this person is having a hard time finding the information that they typically want, with the user journey taking too long. So they're spending too much time in the discovery process, and that's usually a red flag that there's something in the user experience that's just not good for this particular person. So you can go back and you can remediate that. You can fix that for this particular user. So that's another really important thing. But this can get a little creepy. I mean, it gets to the point where people are starting to complain about the fact that the systems start to put stuff in their face that looks like their personal information has been compromised. And it's something that I've kind of been talking to folks at the show about, where I was in Europe recently and I saw the effects of GDPR on my web experience when I was trying to access MLB.com. I mean, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I had to see it when I was over there. And the GDPR process, it literally would take like 3 minutes to sign into MLB there. And what I'm really concerned of is this scenario. So this is you watching this wonderful video, and you're a little maybe frustrated by it. And then what ends up happening is that. Could you imagine how disruptive it would be if suddenly you're going to have to opt in to the video user experience actually doing this kind of personalization on your behalf? It's supposed to be giving you value. And we have to be conscious and careful not to let this happen. So we like to kind of compare this to being a butler. So a butler knows everything about you, but they have discretion. They basically would never, ever say anything about you. And I think as an industry, we have to be conscious. We have to be, serving our clients, but we have to be very careful not to commingle personally identifiable information with this kind of personalization that I'm talking about, or we're going to be subject to the same kind of restrictions that GDPR has put onto the web industry. So that's the viewer metadata. So we see it taking to the next level. We feel that each of these dimensions, we go in and we've talked about how you can actually put content and user metadata to work using AI as a tool to enrich that metadata. And we have use cases that are clear relative to that process. We also see a lot of opportunity to do that for targeted advertising as well. And it becomes especially important as you start to have interactivity in television and you have the ability to go in and say, okay, I want to order something that I just saw on TV, or ads get blended into the actual content. We know that there's a move afoot at this point that Amazon's planning to index all of their movies with the top products that they sell through Amazon. So you can just yell out to Amazon Alexa and say, Alexa, would you buy the red dress that I just saw on TV? This is what's going to be happening, and I'm not kidding, they're really doing that. So basically taking AI as a tool and applying it to metadata is a way to really start to provide this personalization. And then the other fourth dimension is the productization. So this is, people like to buy things in different ways. Some people like to buy in bulk. They want to buy different things. And So we take it even to one further level, which is curating all of these using an AI on top of the other AIs to do that personalization, taking into account all these aspects. And we can then do better recommendations, merchandising, ad placement, monetization. But a really key thing is making sure that you're measuring what are the KPIs for your personalization. Are you reducing churn? Are you trying to get engagement levels, viewing amount? So setting those KPIs so you can measure the success of your personalization is also really important. So, basically AI and data and analytics is a tool. These are all tools. You need to take those tools and then add the human touch to really get the personalization done. And that's what we believe is going to be the future. And that's what we're working to at SeaChange. Thank you very much.
Round of applause for Mark.